sci-fi-friendly podcast with twists and turns. My name is Leigh, and welcome back. Join me for my love for sci-fi shows and sticking with Doctor Who in this episode. But for the next few episodes, Star Wars fans, you're in for a treat. So if you're a Mando, Grogu, Maul, or Corvus 99 fan, stay tuned. In this episode, I want to revisit Jodie Whittaker's last 3 episodes as the Doctor back in 2022, and I have quite a bit to say, so let's begin. Let's quickly go over all 3 episodes. Eve of the Darts is an experimental story where it's all set in one setting for the majority of the story, except for 2 scenes. An unusual story where the Doctor and friends are exterminated right at the beginning of the episode and are attempting to survive through a time loop and make it to New Year's Day. Daleks blaming the Doctor for the death of their squad in the Vanquishers is what I like to call a bit of a loser move, and I like seeing loser moves because it makes them more irritating and more show these villains a thing or two of how to do things. Also, a clarification of Thasmin, which I'll explain more later on. Also, I will be talking about the Dalek trilogy at some point this year, and I'm hoping to do a few more reviews as well. The Legend of the Sea Devils, I agree the editing is a mess, but it's still a 10 for me. This is an episode that was brought in late, and even though it's underrated, I'm happy they gave us an extra episode. There was a lot of Thasmin moments in there. I loved seeing Jodie and Mandip together. It was brilliant. The Power of the Doctor was the centenary special. Despite the fact it had multiple plots that we worked in a standalone episode, this is still a brilliant one with a cameo from the original companion, the late William Russell. David Tennant would also make his first appearance as the new Doctor for a short tenure. Jodie's last scenes in the show were some of her best performances as well, and I still think she stands out. That's the 3 episodes. In a short summary, all of them were brilliant. This will then continue into 2023 with Russell Davies continuing a streak of good episodes and bringing in an experimental idea in Wild Yonder, which is also a fantastic episode. Let's talk about the characters. Whittaker time! I love her, and recently, thanks to my 11 haircut, I think she has an aspect of not wanting to talk about things. 11 held back on discussing timelines with implants. 13 has some mortality win her with the added feelings for her best friend Thasmin. I love that these specials take on the arc and do it in a way that makes 13 compelling, which is why I am a huge fan of her, and I still am. 13's attitude is so good. Cocky 13 is where I go, yes queen! Especially with the villains, it never misses the beat. Her exit is so heartbreaking after the idiotic plans of the Master, which has a silver lining later on, as I will explain. Thank you both Chris and of course Russell Davies for doing this. The line, I need more time, is still heartbreaking and is still one of the best regeneration stories out there. Mike Gill steps up when she needs to and shows her slow burn arc is worth it, which I have mentioned before on the podcast, as it builds up to her staying her best friend in need with all the equipment she needs. Another important thing is, which I'll cover in a bit, is her romance towards 13. Her struggles in the past come to play, and she hasn't told herself that she's in love with 13, and I think that's to do with her mental health, which we need to see and shows this wasn't a one episode thing, as it continued like we saw in Revolution of the Dark. And I love that it can come into play, and it can also play in for the fans who relate to yes, and that's what matters. I still believe that people, if you're going to do real life stuff, should stick with it and not cut off early or mess up, because if you do that, it just ruins the effects, and that is something I think I would love to see Doctor Who take on board going forward. John Bishop didn't come to play here as Dan Lewis. No sir, he is a loyal friend to Thasmin and is the first to work out her feelings for the Doctor. With the Doctor, I would love them to have had more time together. It's a shame, but if he was Commander Yaz, then I understand, but he would have benefited from a full team dynamic like Din Djarin, Din Grogu, and Bo-Katan Reese from The Mandalorian Season 3. Would have felt a Din dynamic in Series 3 of Mando? Yes, but adding Kati Sackhoff to the mix was a brilliant idea, and it boosted Season 3 for me. And for numerous reasons, as you have seen me discuss, I still think it's one of the best Star Wars series of all time. So you can see what the TARDIS trio was missing here. However, Dan is an icon and institution of the Thasmin lore, so he gets a lot of appreciation. I do feel his exit, even though it's a bit abrupt, it does work as a near-death experience, which we saw with Belinda Chandra and Ruby Sunday in the last few seasons of Doctor Who. Very pleased. although not as extreme as theirs, as he got to safety before he collapsed from a cracked spacesuit helmet, it was enough to make the right call to stop. Yes, I think there's arguments on his living situation from both sides. I hope Dan will get his living situation together at some point, as he's a nice guy who deserves way better from what he's had to deal with before. Here are some of the iconic helpers in the specials. Eileen B and Paula McLean still show as Sarah and her mother Mary. I think they're iconic, and Sarah having to deal with the constant calls from her mom in the time is such a genius move. Sarah is one of those characters that is memorable. She has to deal with Nick, who is stalking her, not cool, and the appearance of strangers coming into her storage unit with the Thasmin, and then the executioner darts coming after the Doctor. I just love Eileen. She's a great comedian, and it was a great casting for that special because Eileen suited that special a lot. Talking about characters stepping up, Gemma Redgrave is one of them as Kate Stewart. She's been one of those actresses whose character doesn't have the best run, but is able to pull it back off on a good episode. Especially with Chibnall, who brought her into the show back in 2012. She has a second role as she takes on Ashford and Cyberman. Kate has a near-death experience, again, another near-death experience when she selflessly offers to be upgraded, but thanks to Chief and Javanka, she narrowly escapes full conversion and is still the real Kate. Yes, Chips! I love Kate gets the chance to go into the TARS and relates to the Doctor's friend's exasperation. She also starts to bring the Doctor's friend into unit, like with Manly Bosch. As for that, I will let my 15th Doctor episode coming up in a few months do the rest of the talking. Sticking with familiar faces, let's add Joe Martin, David Bradley, Paul McGann, Sylvester McCoy, Peter Davison, William Russell, Kay Mann, and Ben Langford making cameos in the power of the Doctor. Love them, legends, the perfect send-off. Finishing off with Janet Fielding and Sophie Alfred, they were very important in the power of the Doctor, and I still love the Doctor's hollow thingy is there to help bring closure to their departures with the Doctor. Also, Tegan is still Tegan. Thank you, Chibnall, never take that away. And of course, the classic catchphrase, Ace. The villains were a variety and all very dangerous, which made them as solid as the Pike Syndicate from the Book of Boba Fett, and of course, Caddis Banners, also in the Book of Boba Fett. On today's show, the Dalek Extermination Squad, a group of Sea Devils, the Master and Cyborg and Thasmin. What a lineup, and it's still iconic now, as it was in 2022. That was great. Speaking of the Master, let's delve into the Force Regeneration Degeneration debacle. Sasha Town was menacing. Probably the worst thing the Master has done just to make the Doctor pay, but his cockiness is short-lived thanks to the Yaz event, which works well quite a bit in this episode. I love that his cockiness ends up going later on when he has that faithful encounter with the Toy Maker. Definitely iconic and a genius idea. Do I still boast about the Doctor being a Toy Maker, but the Master can't? Absolutely, after what he did to 13. I like a bit of karma. I want to show the love for Thasmin, despite the fact this could be done earlier than later. However, it did give me time to process LGBTQ plus romances, which at the time of Rockets of the UK, certain things were going in my head, but the wait taught me a lesson. Thasmin has allowed me to be more open towards LGBTQ plus romances, like Rogue Scene, which you've seen me going about last year. You can also see me discuss that on Instagram with me alongside my discussions on Beloved Thasmin. Please subscribe to that channel. Back to Thasmin, of course. Fazzies will be pleased to know that I still love it. I loved how it's handled, and it would be successful like Agatha Real. The romance there in Agatha All Along was still tragic like Thasmin and Rogue Scene. What is the deal with tragic romances? When are we going to get some positive ones? Jodie and Mandip's performance is so phenomenal, as the chemistry is why it works. Thasmin is the polar opposite to Din, Jan and Din Grogu, who are the popular Farrens and Joe. They're both just as good as each other. Just what I'd say that. I can't stop doing over them, but there's a time and a place. But as I said, the polar opposite, and they all stand out. There's a lot of stand-up scenes for the girls which I love, and it's what I want to see in a Doctor companion romance. The Legend of the Sea Devils is the episode where we see it most, and it's important to see the concerns of the Doctor despite the argument I would give for the Doctor and River, especially the reality check that I mentioned in the previous episode. Question: why does River get more time than Yaz? I love both, by the way, as I said, with the Dins. It's annoying, but of course, it's not a romance show, which I agree with, but it makes sense of the robbery of Thasmin scenes. The whole beach scene stands out still, and the last scenes together are just so emotional and heartbreaking, and I still feel that they're brilliant and sad. I want to briefly discuss why the companion support group is a good idea. It helps characters like Yaz who are going to struggle, and allow people like Ian Justin to be updated on how their old friend has changed. It's memorable and nostalgic, which I know the show needs to tone down right now. Tim Tennant obviously made his debut as 14. Regardless of the constant nostalgia of youth that needs to fade at this stage, 14 was good, but it was way better by the end of his second run. I'm talking about 14, not 10. I think that's the same attitude I want to see if they don't wimp out of Billy Piper being 16. So no more wimpies, please. RTD, no wimpies. Let's finish up and talk about the crew involved with the show. Chris Chibnall ended his era on high with well-loved characters and tried to tie up as much as I can and leaving bits for RTD, which is generous. I miss his style of characters as that's what the current era is currently missing. But I see it with Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, Christopher Ford and John Watts in the Mondoverse, which I call the Chibnall era's successor. I miss what he brought, and he's well missed on the show. Seegan Akinola was also living, and he brought a variety of sounds and brought some absolute tunes that still bring me to tears. Segan still moves me, and I miss him. And he's doing quite well at the moment. I think he's doing some other projects. Shout out to the directors Annetta Loffer, Hello Wang, and Jamie Wang-Stone for what they did, and of course, Legend of Cedar's co-writer Ella Rose, and everyone involved in the cast and crew. Thank you. What was your favourite episode of 2022? Was it either the Daleks, The Legend of Cedos, or The Power of the Doctor? Comment down below on the podcast social media accounts. If you want to see more, visit the channel, subscribe if you want to, and hit the notifications to stay up to date. Next episode, it's Star Wars Podcast Day, and I've had to change the plans a bit, so I will be discussing the Maul trailer and bringing some joy as I discuss the upcoming potential success of the show, written by Matt Mitchell-Vetz. Thank you for listening, friends, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye, everyone.